I never thought a phone could make me feel so small, but every time I pulled my old, cracked Android from my pocket, I felt invisible. My name is Ethan, and at 24, I was learning that modern life measures worth in quiet, glowing screens. Group chats moved faster than I could keep up. Photos shared in seconds reached everyone except me. It wasn't just about technology, it was about belonging, about not feeling like the extra space at the edge of the room that I worked long hours at a modest marketing firm, saved carefully, and still fell short. Rent came first. Food came second. Dreams waited patiently at the back of the line. The iPhone I wanted felt symbolic, like a small step into a life where I wasn't constantly explaining myself or apologizing for what I lacked. I told myself it was temporary, that wanting it didn't make me shallow. Still, the desire sat heavy in my chest. Lucas noticed before anyone else did. He always noticed things, how people shifted their weight when uncomfortable, how silence could say more than words. Lucas was my closest friend, the kind who walked beside you without asking where you were going. He dressed well, spoke with ease, and carried a confidence that felt earned. We met 2 years earlier at a co-working space, bonded over late coffees and shared frustrations, and somehow became inseparable. Lucas had more than I did. A better apartment. Better connections. A steadier sense of self. He never flaunted it, which made the gap between us feel both smaller and more obvious. When he upgraded his phone, he didn't say anything at first. He just slid it across the table one evening, letting me hold it, watched the screen wake beneath my thumb. "You should get one," he said lightly that I laughed it off. One day. Lucas didn't push, but his eyes lingered, thoughtful. He knew my situation. He knew my pride. He also knew how much I wanted things I pretended not to care about. There was something else between us, unspoken, carefully avoided. Lucas was openly gay and in a committed relationship with Daniel, someone I had met only a handful of times. Daniel seemed kind, grounded, the sort of person who trusted easily. I respected that. Whatever tension flickered between Lucas and me stayed buried under jokes and late-night conversations. I told myself friendship was enough, but friendships can blur when one person leans more than the other. One night, after a long shift that left me exhausted and frustrated, I finally said it out loud. We were sitting in Lucas's car, the city humming around us, the air thick with things unsaid. "I hate feeling behind," I admitted. "Like everyone's moving forward and I'm stuck explaining why I can't keep up." Lucas didn't respond right away. He drummed his fingers on the steering wheel, eyes fixed ahead. Then he smiled, slow and deliberate. "I might be able to help you," he said. That I turned to him, surprised. "How?" He shrugged, casual, as if what he was offering meant nothing. "I can get you an iPhone. The one you want." The words landed harder than I expected. Hope surged, bright and reckless. Then doubt followed close behind. "I can't pay you back," I said quickly. Lucas finally looked at me. His gaze held something unreadable, concern, maybe, or calculation. "I know." The silence stretched. My pulse quickened. "There's just one thing," he added. That I waited. "Nothing big," Lucas continued, his tone almost gentle. "I just need you to do something for me first." The city noise faded, replaced by the sound of my own breathing. I searched his face for reassurance, for humor, for any sign that this was a joke. I found none. "What kind of thing?" I asked. Lucas smiled again, softer this time. "We'll talk about it later." I should have pressed him. I should have said no. Instead, I nodded, because wanting something can quiet every sensible voice inside you. As he dropped me off, the promise of that phone felt close enough to touch, glowing in my thoughts. Yet beneath the excitement, unease settled in, subtle but persistent. I sensed that whatever Lucas was asking for wouldn't come without a cost. That I watched his car disappear down the street, unaware that I had already taken the first step toward a choice that would change more than I was ready to admit. Lucas waited 3 days before explaining what he wanted. Those days were restless ones for me, filled with half-formed guesses and quiet dread. When he finally asked me to come over, his message was casual, almost careless, as if he were inviting me to watch a movie. I told myself that if the request were truly wrong, he wouldn't sound so normal. His apartment was neat in a way that suggested control. Lucas offered me a drink and spoke about nothing for a while: work, the weather, a new cafe he liked. I noticed what he avoided mentioning. Daniel's name never came up. Finally, I asked, "So, what's this thing you wanted to talk about?" Lucas leaned back against the counter, arms folded. "I need you to spend some time with me. Just us." I frowned. "We already do." "Not like that," he said quietly. The room seemed to narrow. I waited for him to clarify, but he let the words sit between us, heavy with implication. "Daniel's been busy," Lucas continued. "Travel, deadlines, excuses. I don't think he notices when I'm not around anymore." His voice lacked bitterness, but there was something wounded beneath it. "I just don't want to feel alone." I should have walked away then. Instead, I felt the pull of being needed. "What are you asking me to do?" I said. "Come with me to things," Lucas replied. "Dinners. Long walks. Late nights. Nothing physical." He held my gaze. "Just, be there." It sounded harmless when he said it like that. Emotional support. Friendship. I convinced myself that I wasn't replacing anyone, only filling space that already existed. The iPhone sat unspoken between us, a silent promise shaping my answer. "Okay," I said. Before I could rethink it, the arrangement began quietly. We met after work, shared meals that stretched into hours, talked about everything except Daniel. Lucas laughed more around me, relaxed into silences that felt intimate. I learned how easily attention can masquerade as affection. Each time I justified it, telling myself that lines only mattered when you named them, yet guilt crept in anyway. Sometimes Daniel would call while we were together. Lucas never answered in front of me. He would step away, lower his voice, and return looking distant. I told myself it wasn't my responsibility. Still, every unanswered call echoed inside me. The iPhone arrived sooner than I expected. Lucas handed it to me one evening without ceremony, still sealed in its box. "For you," he said. That I stared at it, stunned. The object I had wanted for so long now felt impossibly real, and impossibly heavy. "You didn't have to do this yet," I murmured. Lucas smiled. "I wanted to." As I powered it on later that night, excitement rushed through me, followed by something sour. Each notification felt earned and undeserved all at once. I had what I wanted, but the price lingered in the background of every moment with Lucas. Things shifted after that. Our conversations deepened, growing more personal, more charged. Lucas spoke about feeling unseen, about questioning his choices. I listened too closely, offered comfort that felt too intimate. We never touched in ways that could be easily named, yet something undeniable passed between us, a closeness that demanded secrecy. One night, while walking back to my apartment, Lucas stopped suddenly. The streetlight caught his face, revealing hesitation I had never seen before. "This isn't fair to you," he said. Then my heart pounded. "Then why are we doing it?" He looked at me for a long moment. "Because you don't walk away." The truth stung because it was accurate. I didn't walk away because I liked how he made me feel. Seen. Chosen. Important. I told myself I was helping a friend, but part of me wanted more than gratitude. The first time I noticed Daniel watching me, really watching, I understood that lines had been crossed, even if none were spoken aloud. His eyes held confusion, then suspicion. I felt exposed, suddenly aware of how visible our invisible bond had become. That night, alone with my new phone glowing beside me, I realized something had changed. I was no longer just accepting help. I was complicit in something fragile and dishonest. The favor had become a quiet betrayal, and I sensed that whatever came next would demand a reckoning I wasn't prepared for. The change didn't arrive all at once. It crept in through pauses, through messages left unread, through the way Lucas stopped smiling when I entered a room. The closeness we had built now carried weight, as if every shared moment demanded an explanation neither of us wanted to give. Daniel noticed. I could see it in the way his attention sharpened whenever Lucas and I were together. He didn't accuse or confront. He simply observed, and that quiet awareness felt more dangerous than anger. The absence of words forced me to hear my own conscience more clearly. Lucas grew restless. He cancelled plans last minute, then showed up unexpectedly, as if unsure where he belonged. When I asked what was wrong, he avoided my eyes. I don't like who I'm becoming. He admitted one evening that I wanted to tell him that we could stop, that it didn't have to go any further. Instead, I said nothing. Silence, I was learning, can be a choice, and a cruel one. That the iPhone sat in my pocket like a constant reminder. Each vibration felt like a debt collector tapping on my shoulder. What once symbolized progress now marked the imbalance between us. Lucas had given me something tangible. I had given him something far less defined, yet far more dangerous. The moment everything fractured came quietly. Daniel arrived early to Lucas's apartment one night while I was there. No raised voices. No dramatic reveal. Just a doorway, a pause, and three people standing in the same truth for the first time. His eyes moved from Lucas to me, searching for context that refused to appear. "So this is what you've been busy with," Daniel said softly. Lucas tried to explain, but explanations collapse when they're built on omissions. Daniel listened, nodded once, and left. The door closed behind him with a finality that echoed through the apartment. Lucas sank onto the couch, hands covering his face. I didn't mean for this to happen. I stood frozen, guilt tightening around my chest. But it did. For the first time, Lucas looked at me without charm, without persuasion. Just regret. "I used you," he said. "And I don't know if I even meant to." The words hurt because they were true. I had allowed myself to become a solution to someone else's dissatisfaction, mistaking attention for affection. In doing so, I betrayed someone who had never wronged me and compromised my own sense of integrity. After that night, everything unraveled quickly. Daniel ended the relationship. Lucas withdrew, his messages growing shorter until they stopped altogether. The friendship I once relied on dissolved into polite distance, then silence. That I was left alone with the consequences and a phone I no longer wanted. Days passed. Then weeks. Life resumed its rhythm, but I moved through it changed, more aware of the quiet choices that shape us. I stopped chasing validation through screens and possessions. I began asking harder questions about what I owed others, and myself. One evening, I turned off the phone and let the room fall silent. For the first time in months, the quiet didn't feel empty. It felt honest. That I don't tell this story to assign blame or seek sympathy. I tell it because wanting something badly enough can blur your vision, convincing you that compromises are harmless until they accumulate into something you can't undo. That I needed an iPhone. What I didn't realize was that I needed boundaries more, and sometimes, the price of learning that lesson is far higher than anything you thought you wanted. Time didn't heal anything right away. It only created distance, and distance gave me space to think. Weeks after everything collapsed, I still reached for my phone out of habit, only to remember that the conversations I wanted no longer existed. Lucas's name stayed frozen in my contact list, untouched, like a door I didn't trust myself to open. That I avoided places where I might see him. Cafes we once shared. Streets where we walked too slowly, talking about things that mattered only in the moment. I told myself it was maturity, but it was fear. Fear of seeing regret on his face, or worse, indifference. One afternoon, I ran into Daniel by accident. He stood outside a bookstore, flipping through a novel, looking thinner than I remembered. For a second, I considered turning away. Instead, I stopped. "Daniel," I said. That he looked up, surprise flickering across his expression before settling into calm. "Ethan." There was no anger in his voice. That hurt more than if there had been. "I'm sorry," I said, because anything else would have been dishonest. That he studied me for a long moment. "I know," he replied. "And I believe you mean it." We didn't talk long. He didn't ask for explanations, and I didn't offer them. Some truths lose their usefulness once they've already caused damage. Before leaving, Daniel paused. "You should know," he said, "Lucas isn't doing very well." The words stayed with me long after he walked away. I told myself it wasn't my responsibility anymore, yet a part of me wanted to reach out, to repair something that could never return to what it was. I resisted. Wanting had already cost me enough. That night, Lucas finally messaged me that I hope you're okay. That I stared at the screen, the glow reflecting a version of myself I barely recognized. I typed and erased several replies before settling on something simple. I am. I hope your 2.3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No further message came. That it was then I understood that some connections don't end with closure. They end with acceptance. The absence of resolution is sometimes the resolution itself. That I began focusing on myself in ways I hadn't before. I worked harder, not to impress anyone, but to feel stable. I spent time alone without distraction, learning which thoughts were mine and which had been shaped by loneliness. Slowly, I rebuilt my sense of worth without borrowing it from someone else's attention. The iPhone became just a phone. Useful. Replaceable. Stripped of meaning, what lingered was the lesson. Infidelity doesn't always announce itself with obvious betrayal. Sometimes it arrives quietly, disguised as comfort, as understanding, as help offered at the wrong moment. Sometimes the line is crossed long before anyone realizes they're standing on the other side. That I don't hate Lucas. I don't resent Daniel. And I don't forgive myself easily. But I've learned to sit with that discomfort, to let it remind me of who I don't want to be again. Every choice has an echo. Mine still follows me, not loudly, but persistently, shaping how I listen, how I want, how I say no. This isn't just a story about an iPhone or a favor gone wrong. It's about how easily desire can rewrite our morals, and how quietly we allow it to happen. And if there's one thing I know now, it's this: some things you want will test who you are, and what you become afterward is the part that lasts.